that they basically. All right, welcome everybody. Um, so I know I've been away for quite a while, and you know that that's that's just the way it is. I've been kind of doing some other things. I've been trying to do more writing. I've been my feature film, Look Into the Fire, has finally been released into the world, and it's doing great. If you get a chance to watch it, or if you want to know where to watch it, uh, it, it's on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi. It's on the Roku Channel. So that's very exciting. I've been working on this film for a very long time, and it's something. It's a project that kind of came out of my frustration of not being as far along in my career as I wanted to be, and it was a complete swing for the fences, and I'm so grateful that I was able to bring on such a talented team that helped me kind of bring this story to life. And yeah, so if you get to see it, please leave a review, or you can send an email to tentative.titled.with.tim.podcast@gmail.com. You can send comments there, or you can just comment on IMDb, or on whatchamacallit, on if you buy it on Amazon. So yeah, leave reviews there. That would be um really cool. So yeah, it's the it's kind of this crossing over that happens with, when you create something. You kind of spend so much time working on it, and you put the best effort that you can into it, and then when you put it out into the world, people are gonna love it or hate it or be indifferent to it. And the whole point is that I hope that people actually watch it and enjoy it, and that they that whatever their reaction is to it, that they you know that there was a reaction, and not just like, oh well, okay, well, that was a thing. you know I guess hate and love are kind of the two extremes that I appreciate, but indifference, kind of like, oh, please don't be indifferent towards it. So anyway, the reason why I'm here talking to you right now is because, well, I wanted to talk about Star Wars, and I wanted to talk about the Ahsoka show that is currently being rolled out right now. So I've been a Star Wars fan all my life. If there was, if you gave me two choices, which do you love, Star Wars or Star Trek? Star Wars was the property, the story, the characters, it was the everything that I was invested in as a child. Not to say that I didn't appreciate Star Trek. Star Trek was a very interesting show. Especially the Next Generation. I would watch, the Next Generation, and I loved those stories too. Like, they were, I would show up for appointment television and watch that show. If it was in reruns, I would like catch a rerun here or there. But I wasn't as invested as I was in Star Wars, and maybe it's because Star Trek seemed to be a bigger world that required so much more of this, investment at the time, because Star Wars was only three movies, and it seemed like a complete arc, even though I was excited to get, like, the first trilogy and the last trilogy. I thought, oh wow, there's so much more to the story, and reading the novels was really, like it kind of gave me more context to where uh where the story was going to go. And so like there was still there was still enough there to kind of keep me invested in the world of Star Wars, even though it was very limited. But from that, you know, the novels, the video games, the films, like kept me going for a while. And then there was this rumor that we were gonna get more films, and I was like, oh yes, we're gonna get more films. And then, we got the prequels, and I was like, all right. I wasn't as excited. Like I was excited to go in to see the Phantom Menace, and uh, but there was something missing about it. I started, I came out of that showing of the Phantom Menace, and I was like, it feels like Star Wars, but there's something different about it. There's something missing. There's something just. I was like, I don't know if not that I didn't get it, but I was like, it's a different experience that I'm having that was not the way I felt watching the first trilogy. And so I thought, well, let me watch it again. And I watched it again. And I was like, well, I feel a bit better about it, but still, there's still something off about it. So I was like, all right, well, George is getting back into it, and he's kind of he's setting up. This is a setup kind of film. Let's see what happens next. And the next two films were much more exciting, but they still were. It kind of felt like, well, why didn't we just start here? Why didn't we start off with Anakin? You know, part of the, like he's trying to be part of the Jedi Council, but he's being rejected. You're like, well, why didn't we start here and then go into the Clone Wars? And then, yeah, it just seemed like there was more uh, about the story that was interesting than what we got in the Phantom Menace. But still, I appreciate the Phantom Menace because it sets up this, like, we're in this the golden age of the Republic, and we're seeing everything all shiny and new, and things seem to be working just fine. Even though there's, like, political disputes and trade federation disputes, it's like, okay, well, but that's par for the course. That's just nations, trying to trying to negotiate with one another to get what they want. Um, and then, conflict ensues, and it allows for, these dark forces to really start manipulating the system. It's like, okay, we needed the first one in order uh to see this happening. Okay, I get it. Still, like with a lot of things, with a lot of films, with a lot of television, sometimes it's not what's happening, but how they show it happening, how they choose to tell the story. Sometimes that is really what the problem is, and not necessarily like what we're seeing on screen. So with that, I was just happy to get a full Skywalker arc. We got the prequels, we got the original trilogy. It feels cohesive. By the time we get to the end of Return of the Jedi, it's like balance has been restored, and we've come to the end. The once innocent child who became a tyrant, and a just a bloodthirsty Sith Lord, um, who ends up being manipulated by the real Sith Lord in Palpatine. Finally breaks free from being being under the control of this Sith Lord, and is able to get redemption through his son, who believes that there's still good in him. It's like, okay, that arc works. It's great. Yeah, there's some holes here and there, but overall it's a cohesive story. So that was great. And then you know we got the Clone Wars TV show, which I never really watched. So I was like, all right, you guys are filling in the blanks in between the movies. This is great. Okay, fine. I don't know if I need to see that, but I hear it's really good. Maybe one of these days I'll get around to watching it, which I ended up doing. But I couldn't get through the first season because it's a cartoon, and even though there's some really cool things happening, some really cool some really cool episodes, I just I was like I don't really care. I mean the yeah, I mean the okay, yeah, a war happened. Fine. But we get to see like where it all kind of comes together in the third prequel film. So there was that, and I was like, all right, well, it's still a cohesive kind of world. All right, fine. Then Disney buys Lucasfilm, and I thought, oh, this is gonna be great. Like they got so many resources, and they're gonna be able to take what George Lucas had made and just expand upon it. They'll take the books, they'll take the comic books, they'll start like implementing a lot of these stories into live action, or maybe we'll get it in some series. All right, I'm on board. Let's do this. It's gonna be cool. And quickly we got The Force Awakens, and I was like, all right, cool. We're getting some new films. We're this trilogy that I had been expecting since I was a child is going to happen. We're going to see like what happens to Han, Luke, and Leia after just like because Han and Leia have these twins, and then Luke gets married to Mara Jade, and so that there's this continuation of the story, and we get to see the next generation of the Skywalkers, of this lineage being passed on, and we get to see Luke being this uncle who like trains these twins, and just all of the ways in which Obi-Wan trained Luke, that Luke can carry that on and expand upon it, and become like this, and we get to see him be a Jedi Master too, because we kind of never get to see him do that, at least in live action. So we get to see him be this like very like he has full power Jedi status. And what does he do with that? How does he protect the galaxy? How does he protect his family? Bring it on. Let's see like what conflicts are going to happen, what bad guys are going to pop up. Let's see this happen. That is not what we got at all. That we got something completely different, which I'm going to be fair to the sequel trilogy. It still could have worked. We still got Han, Luke, and Leia. They were in there, and it still could we still could have had that story of Luke training these Jedi, or like there's another force that's kind of like another dark force that is like rearing its ugly head, and Luke is able to lead the charge in being able to uh, come up against it. But we didn't get that. We got a brand new set of characters, which was fine, but there was nothing that we were given about those characters to get us to really invest in them. I'm not gonna go into it, but Rey being like this Mary Sue, just out of the all of the sudden she knows how to use the Force. She knows how to wield a lightsaber, even though we've never seen anything prior to those scenes of her even having an inkling of it, or even dabbling in it, or even just doing it, even okay, even if she wielded a lightsaber, she's wielding it against Kylo Ren, who is to this point like kind of a Jedi, like he's a Sith Lord from what I understand, and so he has so much more training, ability, instincts, like to be able to dispatch any threat, and yet they decided to say no, no, no. She can hold her own against him. It was so dumb. Uh, if there was one missed opportunity, let's say the film just plays out the way it's supposed to, and regardless of like all the different ways in which they could have set up like what this new world of Star Wars is supposed to be. Um, the one missed opportunity was when you know it's Kylo Ren, it's Rey, it's Finn. They're in the forest on the planet, and like it seems like Kylo Ren has got the upper hand, which makes sense because he's Kylo Ren. He's a strong like Sith, and so Rey loses her lightsaber, and she uses the Force to have the lightsaber to pull it back to her, and instead of it being caught by Luke, which I think would have been a crowd pleaser, the audience would have been a standing ovation to have that happen. But they didn't do it. And so instead of that, um they had, they could have just had Luke show up and be there, like maybe he was like, you know, they're kind of like monitoring the situation, and then it would have been a great moment to have him catch the lightsaber and say, "All right, Uncle Luke is here. Kylo Ren, you need to calm the f down. All right. Oh, you're not gonna calm the f down. All right, I'm gonna have to, like, I'm gonna have to beat you in a lightsaber duel and have you run away, because I'm much stronger than you are." And then that could have been a great way to finish off the Force Awakens, and then Luke could have had his hero moment, even if in the next film we see him like, going off to an island where he, is basically a hermit. They still could have had that, but they just didn't do a great job of like explaining why anything was happening. Like there was no character moments. It was just kind of like, well, we're gonna have this scene, and now we're gonna have this scene, and now we're gonna have this scene, and watching it in the theater, I was like, these story beats feel very familiar, and in fact, I was like, walking out of the theater, I was like, I think we just saw A New Hope, like a different version of it, but this feels like it was A New Hope. And some weeks went by, and I was like, no, that was A New Hope. Like we watched A New Hope repurposed on screen, and I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I was like, all right, it's been a while since we've had a Star Wars film, so we're gonna need to kind of bring people back in. We're gonna need to do something that's familiar. We don't want to break the mold too much with this new Star Wars film, so let's give them some comfort food. Let's bring them in, and so I was like, okay, fine. Force Awakens, cookie cutter. All right, fine. I still don't like the fact that they killed off Han, but all right, fine, whatever. So I get that. So I was like, all right, I'm still kind of excited. I'm still excited about Star Wars. There's nothing that has broken my my excitement about it. Like I said, the Phantom Menace kind of broke it a little bit, but as we got to the end of the prequels, I was like, okay, there's a cohesive story here. Even though there's some like flubs here, throughout the prequel, it's still pretty good. And as a complete story, okay, it they're hitting all the beats. They're giving us uh enough that we can you can sit down and watch all six movies, and it feels like it's all part of the same world, and that there's this arc of of Anakin to Darth Vader, and then being redeemed by his son. Okay, that feels cohesive. But in the sequel trilogy, it's like, okay, I'm feeling that feeling that I did during the Phantom Menace, and but I'm like, all right, I hope this goes somewhere. And then when the Last Jedi came out, we went to go see it, and I was just visually, I thought it was like looked really cool, but there were so many story threads that were cut short that I was like, what? Why are they doing this? Like, they must have a plan for like the third film. Like they are really like they're really cutting off a lot of different uh story threads here. Why are they doing that if they're not going to have like something really great happen in the third film? And but once again, I saw the film, I went home, and I was like, but no, something doesn't seem right here. Like they didn't set up anything for the third film. If anything, The Last Jedi feels like it should have been the third film. Like there's so many story threads that are just like kind of resolved or just cut short. And I was like, uh, I I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe the third one will be fine, but my excitement for the third one, I had nothing to hold on to. I was like, uh, all I got to hold on to is there's a third film coming, and clearly there has to be some kind of plan, because why in the world would they make these decisions uh to uh to like, why? Like, that's all I had. I was like, why? And I guess I need to know the answer, and that's what's going to drive me to the theater to watch the third one. But when as I was hearing the rumors of what was supposed to happen in the third film, the fact that they had Palpatine in the trailer for the third film, I was like, oh no. Like, I mean, I guess it sounds exciting, but this feels like they're backtracking into just like, we have nothing new, so we're gonna bring back the main villain from Return of the Jedi because reasons. Because remember Palpatine? He was a cool villain. Hey, and that's kind of what ended up happening. Like, I didn't watch it in the theater. I watched it on Disney Plus, and I'm so glad that I didn't spend my money to watch it in the theater, because it was an excruciating experience. Like, nothing about the film made sense, and most of it was this like running after this MacGuffin, and I was just like, this is absolute nonsense. And then when you finally get to the end of the film, and Ray's like, I like you find out that she was the granddaughter of Palpatine, and so this entire they basically made it seem like the entire Star Wars saga was not about Skywalker at all, but about Palpatine. And I was like, oh, get the heck out of here! You're basically saying my childhood was a waste for loving this Skywalker, for wanting the good guys to win. Okay, I'm like, it, in that moment I was like, I'm kind of done with Star Wars. Yeah, that I loved it at one time when I was a child. No more. I can't. This is stupid. It's all just stupid. And so I yeah, so I was kind of like, I guess I'm done with it for now. And then The Mandalorian came out, and I was like, The Mandalorian, that looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like, a western with this guy collecting bounties, getting jobs and collecting bounties. I'm like, oh man, that sounds pretty awesome actually. And it was. The first season was so good. And for that moment I thought, oh yeah, they learned their lesson. They put together this gobbledygook of a trilogy, and it wasn't cohesive. It didn't seem to make any sense for what happened in the first six movies. Yeah, they learned their lesson. I mean, even though they still like made some money, like maybe they learned their lesson. And like Rogue One, well, was another kind of one of those connective tissue films, which I appreciated. It and that also was pretty good. I appreciated it. It made this connection going into A New Hope, and I was like, oh yeah, all right, that's pretty cool. Um, and then like Solo, I had no interest in. I was like, I don't understand why we have this film about Han Solo when he was younger, only because they were like, hey, we get to show the Kessel Run. That's cool, right? And I was like, I don't care. I whatever. I tried to watch it and I got so bored. I was like, it's not worth it. Uh, but apart from that, since I hadn't watched Solo, I didn't get soured on it. I was I was disappointed that it didn't. It seemed like that Disney was making these films that just didn't. That they were putting investments into films that nobody asked for, and that it didn't seem like anybody was really watching anyway. And so I was like, okay. Well, Rogue One was really cool. That seemed like a proper investment, and and I liked it. So okay, cool. And it seemed in the timeline of Star Wars, you could drop it in at a certain point, and it gives you some context to the story. Okay, that seems to work. But then Mandalorian, it was like completely different, like new character. It takes place sometime after Return of the Jedi. Okay, cool. It's not really connected to anything. All right, that's really cool. And then we got Mandalorian season 2, which like still was pretty good, but like I could tell that it was starting to the storytelling was starting to wane a little bit. It became more of this like guest star of the week. And even though there were some really cool episodes in there, like the prison break episode, I thought was great. But then for some reason at the end of season 2, like they have Luke show up. And I was like, what the heck? I mean, the sequence itself is really really awesome, but I'm like, why didn't we get this Luke in the sequel trilogy? Like, this is what we wanted to see in that sequel trilogy, and yet we're getting it in this show that has nothing to do with Luke Skywalker at all, but suddenly he just shows up. And I was like, okay, well, that was cool and all, but like, in my excitement for Star Wars is kind of peaked a little bit, but still, it's like this confusion kind of peak where I'm just like, that was exciting. Why did that happen? That doesn't make any sense. But that was exciting. Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. so, there was that, and then there was the Book of Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan show, which was like absolute nonsense of a series. Like both of them, they just didn't make any sense, and they could have done something really interesting with the Obi-Wan show. They could have had it be this like this moment where he's it could have followed his um feeling regret and just like they could have had like these very psychological. It could have been a psychological show, or it could have been something where Obi-Wan is kind of like doing the same thing that the Mandalorian is doing, where he's just like, he's trying to just protect Tatooine from the potential threats of people stumbling upon Luke. Maybe like some bounty hunters find that Luke is there, and like so he has to dispatch with them. Possibly like Darth Vader, like eh, ends up being there, or just like finds out that he's there and then threatens Obi-Wan with death if he leaves Tatooine. Like there's so many different ways that they could have approached that story, uh, or just not done it at all, which also works. But what they ended up doing was absolute nonsense. They had Obi-Wan being a babysitter to Leia, and then or like basically finding Leia, but then being a babysitter to her, and then having this Riva character who like is brand new, but belong like she's part of like the Night Sisters or the Night Guard, whatever those that faction is. And it's like, as much as it was cool to kind of see those characters, it's like they weren't given enough time to do anything. And then uh, the Revo was supposed to be like this big, this intimidating character, and she was just laughable. I mean, I thought the actress did a great job in the Queen's Gambit. Like, she was very interesting to watch. I was like, wow, like she's interesting. I would love to see her in more things, but seeing her in this show, I was like, oh, maybe like I don't know. She doesn't she's not doing that great in this show. Maybe she should have, like maybe I need to see her in something else in order to determine if she's, if I like her as as an actress or not. Um but yeah, it was just like there was so much they made it overly complicated, and they try to fit so much in, and I was just like, why? Okay, why? Like, if you're gonna do this, at least give more episodes. Like that's another problem that they have with these shows, is that they're like, you need to tell a story about all these characters in 8 episodes, and it's like there's not enough screen time to tell this in 8 episodes, unless like each episode is like 2 hours long. Like, it needs to be a feature length movie in a lot of ways. But you know, they did, they did what they did. They made the choices they made. Some of these productions were had the limitation of COVID, and like having to go by the protocols. I get that, but you have to start with a foundation, and they none of these shows seem to have a good foundation when it came to what was the story they were trying to tell, what was the personal growth or implications of the characters. It was just nothing but plot, and because it was nothing but plot, it was all boring, and it was just like, I'll watch it, but I'm never gonna come back to these shows again. Like, I don't care at all. And especially with Obi-Wan, it's like that's one of the characters you need to care about. Like, yeah, I care about Obi-Wan. I thought he was interesting in the prequels. I thought he was, like his self-sacrifice in A New Hope, and then the way he tries to guide Luke, through the other movies. Like, he's a compelling mentor and character, and yet it was just flat when it came to his show. And the same thing with the Book of Boba Fett. It was like, this character is not interesting at all. What you're having him do is not interesting. And then you throw a couple episodes of The Mandalorian into it for some reason, and only because you want him to come back in the last episode to help Boba Fett, in this town square kind of shootout with a Rancor. And I was just like, okay, well, whatever. Just, it didn't make any sense, and they didn't set it up properly. Like, I like to say that it's not necessarily like what is happening that I have a problem with. It's the how they choose to show what's happening, or how they go about doing it. It's like, you can still have you can still have all these things happen, but you need to set them up, and they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to write for television at all. They don't know how to set up things and pay them off. They don't know how to do it. They're relying on Like, oh, well, you should have read this comic book and this one line in this comic book in this run that happened 5 years ago. No, no, I'm not going to buy all this extra stuff just so I can understand what you're supposed to be doing on a basic level when it comes to the writing and production of these things. No, I'm not going to do it because you're supposed to tell a story in the confines of the format that you're working in. So, even if you've told this story in a comic book or a novel, that's fine. But you need, like, these writers need need to not rely upon that. They need to say, okay, well, this is an installment of this story of this character. What does the audience need to know to, like, follow along with what's happening in the story and to be able to enjoy it? Like, it is possible. Good writers have done it thousands of times before. And yet when it comes to Star Wars, they're like, nah, what what we're trying to appeal to is those people who have bought everything and have read everything. And it's like, well, great. Well, you're basically alienating an audience that you could have. Like, you could bring in new people, but if they're watching a show and it's their first time watching Star Wars ever, they're going to be completely confused and frankly frustrated. I mean, I know about some of these I know about the characters, I know about some of the new characters, or, like, some of the ones from the Clone Wars and stuff. Like, I know about them, but I know nothing about them. Like, I can recognize them. I can, I'm like, oh, that's Ahsoka, that's Rex, that's it's like, but I know nothing about them because I haven't gone on that journey with these other in these other formats. But I shouldn't have to. Like, I'm not watching TV to have homework. I'm watching TV because I want to relax, because I want to go on this one journey with these characters in this story, and maybe that's it, and that's fine. So, anyway, I'm kind of getting off track, but essentially the storytelling got sloppier and sloppier and sloppier and sloppier, and it got more and more aggravating, to the point where I was just like, I don't even know if, like, Star Wars is for me anymore. Like, I'm completely, like, out of the loop on all of it, and I don't really care. Like, I'm not excited about what is being shown, and there's yeah, I mean, I don't need, like, all these accommodations, but I kind of need a good story. I kind of need to understand, like, what's happening. And the answer to a lot of my criticisms, a lot of the problems that I see in these shows, sometimes involves a very small, like, just a small scene, or, like, a little bit of dialogue, or just, like, show a character just do something. That's it. That's all you need to do, and I'm like caught up. I'm like, oh, got it. I know what this character wants. I know why they're doing what they're doing. But we don't get any of that. We get the, oh, why don't you leave it up to interpretation? It's like, no, I'm not doing that. No. So anyway, as each show has been released, now I've heard the Andor show is actually pretty good. Slow, but pretty good. And I've been warming up to actually watching that because if it is a good show and a lot of people have been singing its praises, then I kind of want to check it out. But since I'm kind of, like, on the fence about Star Wars in general, I'm like, do I even want to spend the time watching this when I could spend it watching something else? There's so many other things out there that I want to watch that are on my list. Why would I waste all this time watching this? So yeah, I honestly don't know if I'm going to even take a chance on it, unless, like, I'm really desperate um for watching something, or if there's some kind of like uh you know some kind of reason beyond just people have said it's good. So uh, I'm gonna take a quick breather right now. I've been talking for a good 40 minutes. So Aaron, if you're still here, how's it going? Thank you for tuning in. I know it's been I've been talking for a while, so hopefully you're still there. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Uh, so um, let me get a quick drink. Ah, there we go. So with so Star Wars, I don't know if I love it anymore. I can still watch the original trilogy and still love it. I can still watch the prequels and still love it. Uh, so there's still the nostalgia. There's still a part of me that loves this world, loves the characters. But I think I'm going to have to classify some of this other stuff as kind of like fan fiction, and that's what it kind of feels like. It feels like somebody had a great idea for an Obi-Wan show who was a fan, and they had all these resources behind them, and then they were like, okay, let's do a what if, and they did. But it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It feels dumb. It it sucks. And so that brings me to the Ahsoka show. And there's a new episode coming out tonight, but I don't know if I'm excited to see it. In fact, I almost stopped watching after episode 3 because there was just so, like, it was boring. Nothing was happening. I didn't understand, like, why anybody was doing what they're doing. Like, Ahsoka is, wants to find, like, she wants to, like, find Ezra. She wants to stop Thrawn. But coming into this cold, I know who Thrawn is. I know the novels. But I don't know who this Thrawn is. I don't know if they would have given us like some kind of recap, some kind of like, hey, if you didn't know, this is Thrawn. Oh, in case you didn't know, this is Ezra. This is the sacrifice that Ezra made to pull Thrawn into another galaxy. Okay, that could have been very simple, but no, they decided to do this whole thing with like Sabine not showing up to this ceremony where she's gonna be honored, and it was just like this character, like Sabine, already seems like she's very insufferable. And in fact, all of them seem a bit insufferable. It's just like, well, who are you? Like, I don't even know who you are. I don't even know like what your personality is. I don't even know what you want. Like all of that. Like there's so many things they could have set up. There's so many ways in which they could have shown this story, and I didn't actually get any interest until like I watched episode 4 because like it just sounded like that. I was just like, I'm just gonna give it another. I'm just gonna watch one more, and I was pleasantly surprised that there was something that actually was happening. It's like the first episode is like plot is happening, things are happening, but I don't understand why, and I don't care. And then finally in episode 4, I was like, okay, well, I'm starting to kind of see what these characters want. Finally, I get to see what these characters want. Finally, I get to see some like motivation, some actual like character. I finally get something that I can latch onto, as a viewer. And then last week there was the big episode with, like if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's basically like it's a dream sequence question mark, or it's basically inside Ahsoka's head, I guess, but it's also in this like world between worlds, which I guess was introduced in the show Rebels. So I I have no idea. There were some pretty cool sequences in there. There was like there was a lot of, you know, it was supposed to be this episode where we get to see Ahsoka kind of with this internal struggle, but we don't get like we get some of that, but we don't understand why. It's like, okay, was Ahsoka depressed? Is she is her is her conflict whether or not she wants to live or die? Because that's the choice that she's given in this episode, and I was like, well, that doesn't make okay. So I mean, obviously she's gonna choose life because, well, we need her for the next couple episodes, and they would not kill off Ahsoka. So it was really confusing, even though there were like some really cool things that happened. But it was kind of this missed opportunity where if they were trying to pay something off, they didn't do a great job of setting it up, like at all. I was like, yeah, this is a cool sequence and all, but like, what does it all mean? What does it all mean? Why? And then at the end, it's like, oh, we're gonna go, we're gonna go to this other galaxy. We're gonna get, we're gonna stop Thrawn, and we're gonna find like Ezra, and it's like, okay. And then the question is posed: do you even know like where this is going? And Ahsoka's like, I don't know. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why are they, like, why is there not something, some device or some kind of like force where she's like, oh well, I realized what it is I need to do in order to find our way to where, the bad guys are, so we can get Sabine. Like, the bad guys have like used this like this light speed ring thing to go to this other galaxy, and it's like, okay, and they got Sabine as like their hostage, and it's like, okay, well, so you don't know where in this vast galaxy you're going to end up, which means that like you could be lost out in this galaxy for a very long time while the bad guys are winning essentially, and Sabine could be, hurt, and Ezra could be killed, and it seemed like all that concern that they had for the characters, the concern that I could actually like comprehend, just goes out the window. And it's like, all right, well, why? I don't get it. I guess that was supposed to be the cliffhanger, so they will show up for the next episode, which I I mean, I guess I'm gonna show up for it tonight. I'm really on the fence about it, because it does mean like wasting my time. Like, if I wasn't gonna waste my time with the Andor show, and I feel like I've wasted my time with the Obi-Wan show and the Book of Boba Fett, and I I don't think I mentioned that I tried watching Mandalorian season 3 and I couldn't get past the third episode. I don't even think I got through the third episode. I was just like, I'm out. This is dumb. This is so much dumb. I don't care. It's dumb. And even in the Ahsoka show, there's dumb things happening where I'm just like, okay, at least explain why. Just give me a little bit of an explanation, or because the character of Sabine gets run through with a lightsaber, and that's supposed to be a cliffhanger, and then like the next episode, oh, she's fine. What the hell? Like in previous iterations of Star Wars, a lightsaber through the stomach meant death. Qui-Gon Jinn dies. Now, Darth Maul, he got cut in half. They brought him back to life with like a kind of like a spider kind of like base or something. I don't know. But it's like they've taken the sting of death out of Star Wars. And that's another thing that kind of just it doesn't make it dramatic anymore. Nobody's in danger. Nobody's going to die. It's childish. It's dumb. It's all kinds of them being afraid of the audience, of killing off a character and then having the audience be like, "No, how dare you? I hate you. I'll never watch this again." Instead, they're like falsely, killing off characters in order to bring them back, and that just takes all the drama out of it. It makes it boring. It makes it, I keep saying dumb. I keep saying stupid because it is. It is. It's just I can't believe they they're making these choices like in the writers' room, like who, or even because like most if not all of this series is written by Dave Filoni. It's like, did this not go through like other people? Was it just, oh, Dave Filoni's at the top? Yep, well, he knows what he's doing. So yeah, we're not gonna question anything. Like, weren't there directors who were reading the script saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense, or can we just add something to make to kind of make this more dramatic? Like, I mean, I know showrunners have like are the top, the top dog, they're the top boss, but it's like, maybe those conversations were happening where a director came in and said, "Hey Dave, like I noticed this and this. Yeah, can I like, I think it would work better if blah blah blah, or like, can I make a suggestion?" And maybe Dave Filoni's like, "Don't you like? I'm the god of Star Wars. Don't you can't tell me nothing." Maybe that's the way he is behind the scenes. I don't know. I have no idea. But considering the way in which these shows have been made, and just the way in which they tell a story, it doesn't make any they don't make any sense. And I could see like maybe somebody's got a is full of themselves over there at Lucasfilm, and is not allowing people to tell them when something sucks. So because of that, everything sucks. Or at least in my opinion, everything seems to really suck. Even though it has this really pretty like presentation, like some of it is actually really impressive and cool, and it's like, wow, that's so great. And but then when you're done with the episode, or when you're done watching the show, you're like, well, what was that all about? What was the meaning of all that? That like there's nothing here. It's just stuff happens. Like there's no significance to any of it. It's not bringing us to a greater understanding of these characters. It's just things are happening. And it's so stupid. So stupid. Okay. I didn't mean to, well, in this I did mean to bitch and complain about Star Wars, because I'm so frustrated with it and I want it to be good and it's not. and I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm over it and I don't care anymore and I don't want to waste any of my precious time because, well, time is a limited resource, and if you give it away to like nonsense, then you've you've wasted those minutes, and I want to stop wasting my time on things and just, that's fine if they're making things for a very specific crowd. Okay, like maybe it's my dumbass for tuning in and expecting to get something better than or to expect something better than what I've been getting. I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But um yeah, so Star Wars is is I don't know. It makes me sad in a lot of ways. And I know that like my kids, they have no interest in Star Wars. Star Wars is not like they're not once have they even when we've sat them down to watch the movies, they're not really that interested in them. There's nothing compelling about it. They're like they have their own thing. They have their own interests. They have their own um uh things that they are very invested in, and they spend their time watching and studying and being involved in. Star Wars is not one of those things. So it kind of leaves it to just me. I mean, my wife is kind of into it, but like not nearly as into it as I was. Like I was all in on Star Wars, and it was like that if there was any way that I could associate myself with being a nerd, with being a geek, it was only through Star Wars. That like that's it. There was really nothing else. Like I collected comic books and I read comic books, but like it was really on a peripheral kind of like I just got really into it, and I was like collecting a lot of like the new stuff, the stuff that came out uh, from like Image, and I was into like the X-Men cartoon. I thought that was really great. But yeah, I didn't I was invested in those areas of nerddom, but like Star Wars was where it was at for me. Like that was my thing, that was my world, that was what I loved the most. And now I don't recognize it. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's going. I do have a theory though, and here's my theory. And even with just watching what is out there now, I don't exactly know how it's gonna all fit together. But here's my theory. So let's picture a timeline. There, let's like in history, you got the 1900s up to like 2000, and then you got all these dates in between, and you got all these events that happened, right? I think when especially with George Lucas, this kind of he started this timeline, so to speak. So you have the timeline of the original trilogy, and it's like this is from this date to this date, and then you got the prequel trilogy, and that's from this date to this date. But then it butts up against like the original trilogy. Maybe there's some gap in between, which I think there is. I forget how many years. And then you have the sequel trilogy where there's there's 30 years between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. So there's the big gap in there where we're not quite sure what happened, which is where The Mandalorian comes in and some other things. Okay, fine. So what I think my theory is, and it's probably not a it's not a theory that I'm sure people who follow Star Wars, like it's not a probably not a new theory at all, probably a very mundane theory, is that everything that they're creating now, they're trying to just fill in those gaps on that timeline. And so they don't feel a need to get people caught up, because I'm sure they're like, hey, once we're all done, once once we've filled in all the blanks, if somebody starts at the Phantom Menace and they get all the way to the Rise of Skywalker, or possibly beyond, then it's a complete story, guys. Like, you won't need to have like all of this, like this catching up, previously on stuff happening in these shows, because you're going to go on this journey. When you start at the beginning and then you reach the end, you'll be on this journey. You won't need all this catch up stuff. You won't need all this like what like that's my theory. Is that they're hoping that when everything is said and done, that somebody will they'll have this huge catalog of things. They'll have this timeline of movies and shows that once you watch them in order, that it all makes sense. But it's not going to. It's still confusing. It's still nonsense. It's still not great storytelling. And that's the frustrating thing, and I don't know why I keep showing up. I think I show up because I want to see where it goes, if they finally like got their head out of their asses and actually like did some storytelling. I don't know. I keep doing this to myself, and like I said, even now there's a new episode of Ahsoka that's gonna be on in a couple hours. It's gonna be ready to view, and I'm still debating. I'm debating whether or not I'm gonna watch it, because I don't know. I don't know if I want to waste my time. I mean, I guess if it's like a half hour, I don't know. I don't know. It's like, I don't want to have this conflict. I want to be able to show up to these shows being excited, expecting a great like bit of storytelling, and then when it's all said and done, to have a full arc of a story. I don't want to say it's simple, but it's simple. It's so simple. Just do it. Just tell a complete story. But they can't. I don't know why. I don't know what is stopping them. I don't know what politics or whatever is being played. I don't know if there's a conflicts and pride and all kinds of stuff happening behind the scenes. I don't know, but it looks, from the outside, it looks like a complete mess. A complete mess that, like, I wish I would have known that it was going to be a mess before I started watching, because I would have stopped. I would have stopped after the Rise of Skywalker and said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. It's stupid. The Star Wars is stupid. The whole story is about Palpatine. You've completely like given me the middle finger for investing all my time and my money and my energy in studying and in watching these movies over and over again, and reading the novels, in caring, in just caring at all about this. I don't, yeah, it pisses me off, because I just, it could be so much better. And I know it could be so much better, and I know that they know it could be so much better. But maybe they don't. Maybe they're like, just slap Star Wars on it and people will show up and they'll clap they'll just be like, oh, hey, look, red lightsabers, look, look, it's Anakin Skywalker, look, like, honestly, that's what it is. It's not a story. It's just, hey, we're gonna put this thing in the show that you recognize, and that's gonna be enough. And unfortunately, it is. Unfortunately, like, the people who show up and are excited about this, that's all they got, is just these things that they recognize. That's it. That's very shallow. It's just, I get it, and I don't. It's like, once you step back from all of it, and you just look at it, you look at each one of these shows and you try to define, like, what were the themes, um what was the central conflict, why did this character need to go on this journey, like, what what happened if they didn't succeed. You know, there's so many basic storytelling, uh like, principles that they didn't put into these shows because they don't know how to write shows. They don't know how to write television. And it sucks a lot. Uh, well, I've been rambling about Star Wars for over an hour. And yeah, I just needed to vent. I've been thinking about this for, well, since Ahsoka's been on, but even longer than that. There have been plenty of times when I've just been like, you know what? I'm done with Star Wars. Who cares? It's not for me anymore. I got better things to do. I'm a creator. I'm a filmmaker. I got a feature film that's out right now. I'm trying to curate an audience for that. I'm trying to get funding for my next film. I'm trying to get that off the ground. Like, there's so many other things that will benefit me than watching Star Wars. Because it used to benefit me watching Star Wars. I used to feel good watching Star Wars. I used to come away feeling like I went on some kind of adventure, that I got to spend time with characters that I love, and that I want to see, like, do awesome things, and to say cool things, and to, just go on adventures with, over and over and over again. But I don't feel that with any of the new characters. I don't care. I don't care what they do. I don't care where they go. I don't care what what color their lightsaber is. As euphemistic as that sounds, like, people were getting excited about Anakin Skywalker having a red lightsaber from the last episode. How shallow is that? Really shallow. That's not story. That's just a thing. That's just, like, I mean, you could put meaning onto it, sure. But all in all, it doesn't mean much. It just means, like, oh yeah, we know he becomes Darth Vader. In fact, Ahsoka knows that he becomes Darth Vader. So there's no new information here. There's nothing. Nothing's happening. Nothing is happening. But yeah, I have a feature film that's out in the world right now called Look Into the Fire. It features Greg Henry. If you know him, he's been in a lot of things. He was like the granddad in Guardians of the Galaxy in the first one. He was in Payback with Mel Gibson. He was in he's a great character actor. He's been in a lot of stuff. If he's worked with, like, James Gunn in one of his early films. So yeah, if you look up his resume, he's been in so many things. He's also a theater actor. He does a lot of theater, which I appreciate when actors are not only they're not only doing film, because film is a very specific skill as an actor, but they're honing their skills on the stage as well. I really appreciate that. I love when I haven't heard or I haven't seen an actor in a while, or I'm like, what happened to that actor? What, like, did they retire? Did they die and, like, nobody reported it? Like, what's going on with this actor? And then I find out that they went away to be on Broadway for a little bit, or they went to go hone their skills on the stage. I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, they're doing what actors do, which is acting. And if they maybe weren't getting, like, any roles in film and television, maybe they were like, yeah, I gotta I still want to act. So where do you do the most acting? You go to the stage. So I really appreciate that. So yeah, Greg Henry's in it. Jackie Dallas is she's an up and coming actress. She's been in like a lot of TV. You can see her in Stranger Things. She has a little part in there. So yeah, and some other cast members who like they're making things happen. So it's like it's great to see. But yeah, if you want to see it, it's on Amazon Prime, it's on Tubi, and it's on the Roku Channel. So yeah, check it out. If you watch it, leave a review, hopefully a good review. But I'm all for as honest feedback as I can get on it because this film has it's kind of run the gamut of people really loving it and thinking it's spectacular, and people who are just like, wasn't that great, whatever. And it really just depends on the it depends on a lot of factors, like maybe it wasn't the genre that they were into, or maybe they were like, well, I was expecting something with a higher production value, which is fair. But you know, I did the best I could with the resources I had, and I think I put together something pretty great, considering like all the limitations that I had with just getting the film off the ground, and then like all the problems I had in post. Just it it's the best version of itself considering the limitations. So yeah, so if check it out, and you can leave a review on Amazon, or you can uh, go to IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. You can just leave a review there, and hopefully you like it. Like it, love it. I mean, even if you hate it, I guess I'll take that. At least there was some react. I got a reaction, and like at least like you got to see the film, and that's really just all it's like. All it's really about is just getting eyeballs on it, getting people to see it, getting people to share it, to talk about it. I know there's so much out there. Clearly there's stuff being cranked out every week, and it becomes overwhelming. But I would love to get some more fans of my work, and that would be great, especially because you know if I can just if I can just impress some of you, and when I try to get another film off the ground, that I can I can come to you guys and say, hey, you really loved this film, or you at least appreciated this film. I want to try to do it again. I want to try to make another one of these, like these huge films, and I need help because filmmaking is not cheap. It requires a lot of resources. It requires money, and that's just what it is, and you kind of not to say that like all the money in the world gives you the best product, because we've seen that even if you throw money at something, it doesn't mean it's going to be the best thing because invested $200 million into it. Like there are plenty of movies that, especially this year, that we've seen that haven't done that great in theaters, and they were 200 to 300 million dollars to make, and they're not going to make any of that back, or they're not going to reach profitability after production costs and after marketing costs. Like it's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen for a very long time. So I'm not trying to make a $100 million film. I'm lucky to make 100,000 to 200,000, just in that low budget like realm right there. As crazy as it sounds, like $100,000 is nothing. Like uh $500 million, not 500, a $5 million film is considered to be low budget, and in fact even 20 million is considered to be low budget. Like, so yeah. um but I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm trying to make a career out of this the best I can. Trying to make a living if I can, off of you know this dream that I have, this ambition to be a filmmaker, or to be part of the film industry, which I've had since I was a kid. I started out wanting to be an actor. I thought the movie stars on screen, I thought they were so cool, and I was like, oh, if only I could be one of those people up on the screen. That it sounds like such an amazing um opportunity to be one of those people. And then, as I was doing acting, and then I was like, well, I kind of want to get behind, get behind the camera, and see what I can do there. And I started to write some stuff, and then I started to do camera work a bit, and then I was like, I really want to direct, and then I started to become a writer director, and now I the film, like Look Into the Fire, I wrote it and I directed it, and it's like it was an amazing opportunity, and I would love to try to do it more. But maybe I should look into not Look Into the Fire, but maybe I should look into doing smaller projects, and doing short films instead of features. But I mean, features are one of those challenges that, like, yeah, it's going to require a lot. But it's such a great feeling once, like, getting through it, once it's done, putting it together, having it as something that um can be put out into the world, because a feature film is seen with a lot more, like, people are more impressed with a feature film than they are with a short film. And that's just the reality. Like, a feature film just is bigger and requires more, and is seen as a bigger accomplishment than a short film. Short films are still tough. Short films still require a lot, are very challenging, require all of the same headaches as a feature film. It's just a feature film, just, yeah, more days of headaches and challenges and just more. It's just more, essentially. So I guess I will wrap it up here, cuz yeah, like I said, I've been talking for a while, and uh once again, thank you, anybody who watches this on the replay, or who has, like, you know come in and watch this live. Thank you very much for being here. So yeah, with that, I don't really have a closer. I don't think I've ever had a closer when it came to the podcast. But what I will do is say it's good to be back. It's good to do these streams. I want to do this every Tuesday if I can. Cause yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially if I have something to talk about. And that's really what it comes down to, is if I don't have anything to talk about, if there's nothing really pressing, then I I might not stream because I have nothing to talk about. So, well, we will see how it goes. Because yeah, every week is different, and this one in particular, I felt this just fire to just in my belly there. I was like, I gotta talk about this. I can't stand the fact that Ahsoka and Star Wars is such a terrible, stupid uh story right now. And I want it to be better. I I I just can it just be better? Please, just can it be better? I know it can. You guys have resources. Lucasfilm, you have all the resources in the world. Make better stuff. Please, please, please. Anyway, guys, so Yep, that's all I got for today. So I will see you on the next one. If that's next week, then great. But yeah, until the next